Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our February School Counselor Advisory. I am so excited to see all of your beautiful faces today, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us this morning. I know that this is National School Counseling Week, so there are lots happening in your schools, and it took a little bit extra for you to join in today, so we appreciate that, and I promise not to keep you long. All right, just a few housekeeping things before we get started. Um, Please keep your camera on so that we can connect to one another while in this virtual meeting space. Sometimes it's hard to stay connected in spaces like this, so having our camera on just makes that a little bit easier. Go on and check your microphone to make sure that it is muted. We don't want to hear any conversations that we are not privy to, especially because today's session is being recorded and will be posted online. So also remember, today's session is recorded and will be posted online. So make sure that your background, we're not seeing students back there, and we're staying in our professional tone throughout the meeting. Attendance. Karen is going to take attendance for us like she always does. Karen, are you on with us today? It might be Corinne. I might have said
Corinne, yes.
Yes, I am
Corinne.
so sorry, Corinne. As soon as I said it, I realized.
And Michelle, real quick, we need to get Rachel's last name. If she can change her name in Teams, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I know I saw Corinne on here, so we'll come back to attendance here in just a minute, but we are going to go on and approve the prior meeting minutes before we get started. So I am going to drop in the chat real quick.
Here, Michelle, sorry.
That's okay. It's no worries. We can go on and, yeah, Corinne, if you want to do attendance and then people can take a look at the meeting minutes while we're taking attendance, that would be great.
All right, let me get this pulled up. All right. Sarah Aiken, Western Kentucky Cooperative.
Here.
Elizabeth Barnett, Bullitt County. Kate Barron, Jefferson County.
I'm here.
Courtney Benfield, Glasgow. Alvin Brooks, Jefferson County. Alicia Bush, Warren County. Rachel Caswell, Fort Thomas Independent. Tammy Cole, Powell County. Stralsy Collins, Jefferson County. Chesley Crane, Simpson County.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Scott Danner, Union County. Camille DeStefano, Caverna Independent.
I'm here.
Lucretia, oh, sorry. Gotcha. Lucretia Dye, Western Kentucky University. Beth Fleming, Hopkins County. Kelly Fox, Boyd County. Fatima Fusen, Whitley County. Zan Gibbs, Corbin Independent.
Corinne, I don't know if you saw in the chat, Fatima is here. Her mic is not working.
Oh, sorry. I'll get that. All right. Malia Gibson, Jefferson County.
And Suzanne Gibbs is also here. She put that in the chat.
Thank you. All right. Terry Hall, Boone County.
I'm here.
You. John Hargis, Pulaski County.
Yes, ma'am, here.
Thank you. Travis Kern, Bergen Independent. Mary Lewis, Berea Independent. Julie Link, Russellville Independent. Jessica Longland, Boone County. Carla McCarty, Paintsville Independent. Harry McGrath, Clark County.
Elizabeth is here, Barnett, and so is Rachel Caswell in the
Go
chat.
back up real quick. Kayla McKinney, Floyd County.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Antonia Melton, Fayette County. Heather Moore, Boyd County.
Here.
Thank you. Paula Moore, Jefferson County.
I'm here. Good morning.
Cordia Pickrell, Jefferson County.
I'm here.
Thank you. Amy Pike, Meade County. Santina Plotner, Ohio Valley Educational Cooperative.
I'm here.
Thank you. Garrick Lee Ratliff, Craft Academy.
I'm here.
Thank you. Manija Reynolds, Jefferson County.
I'm here.
Thank you. Mindy Rose, Callaway County.
I'm here.
Stacy Russell, Boone County. Amber Schmidt, Kenton County. Carl Shane Siegel, Graves County.
I'm here.
Thank you. Jelena Wheeler, Russell Independent.
I'm here.
Tammy White, Webster County. Chloe Bilcher, Lincoln County.
I'm here.
Thank you. Kristen Williamson, Clark County.
Hi, I'm here.
Thank you. That should be it. Did I miss anybody?
I think we had a few people come on since you've done roll call. If you did not hear Corinne say your name and you have recently popped into the meeting, if you could please unmute your microphone and let her know so that we can get your attendance marked.
Corinne, this is Mindy Rose. Did you hear me when I said I'm here?
I did. I clicked yours.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else that just came in and missed roll call? Okay, I think we're good. Thank you, Corinne.
Thank you.
Okay, in the chat, I have dropped the meeting minutes from our last advisory meeting at the end of November for you to take a look at. I'm going to need someone that can approve the minutes. And if you approve, if you can just take yourself off mute and let me know that you approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. Do I have a second?
I do.
Thank you, Carl. I appreciate that as well. All right, give me just a second and I am going to share my screen again so we can get back started while you guys were doing attendance. I got completely kicked off. All right, for those that came in maybe a little bit late, just a reminder that we are recording today's session, so make sure your microphone stays muted, but we also want you to engage in the conversation. So we're going to pause and ask for feedback. We want you to use that chat function. We definitely want you to stay engaged throughout today's presentation. And if you're on this advisory meeting because your voice is important, it's valuable. We want to hear from you. All right, so let's go on with today. First, we want to welcome you. It's National School Counseling Week, and that is super exciting. I hope that you all have been celebrated at your school and you are getting a lot of opportunity to advocate for our profession as school counselors. This year's theme is based around standards-based in student focus And I love that theme because I think that it gives us an opportunity to share with other folks that do not know the world of school counseling about our standards and how we have standards just like every other content area has standards when we're working with students. And so those are important North Star pieces for us as school counselors, and we talked about that at the cadre quite a bit on Tuesday, and I hope that you guys were able to join in and got something out of that session. But if you can, drop in the chat box and tell us something that you are doing for National School Counseling Week at your school. Love to celebrate and highlight some of that. And Damien, my chat does not show when I'm showing my screen. If you can let me know what's going on in that chat function.
You got it. We've already got a shout out for Alicia. Alicia, I noticed you as well, your cape and your mask celebrating. So kudos to you. Corinne says that she's doing daily trivia with our staff. I would love to hear some of the trivia that you're doing. What are some other things?
I would like to hear that too.
I can turn my mic on and share. That might be easier than trying to type it all. I'm sharing out things each morning. I'm sharing it out. It's been really competitive, so that's been kind of fun. People trying to beat each other out. But it started off with what do you know what the 3 domains of ASCA are? And then once they share out, I'm sending back links for them to or when I send it at the end of the day saying who won or who was the quickest to respond, I've put that in there. I've put the recommended school counselor to student ratio in there. And I had about the CASEL core competencies, how they're crosswalked, and if they knew what the CASEL competencies were. And then tomorrow's is just about me. It's like, how long have I been in the district? And so, but it's been fun.
I love that.
Love that. Yeah. Michelle, we also, well, first off, Corinne, I think we would love to highlight that in a counselor connection. So if you'll send some of that to Dr. Cersei, I'm sure she would be happy to feature that. Dr. Cersei, Kayla says that she's advocated for counselors on social media as well as shared what a counselor's role is and how parents and community can also access referrals for counseling. Alicia says that this is our superhero. Alicia says that we combined Leader in Me paradigms with National School Counseling Week. While we're waiting for some other entries, Dr. Cersei, do you want to share some of the things that you're doing for National School Counseling Week?
Yeah, so we kicked off the week by doing a 3-hour training specifically for school counselors. And like I said a minute ago, I hope that you guys were able to plug in and enjoy that. So we wanted to make the training on Tuesday all about you and trying to fill your bucket up and replenish your soul and your spirit. So what we really focused on was, one, looking at advocacy. What does that mean? Different types of advocacy. We did not make it through all of the types of advocacy, so we're going to have a standalone training on that. But we did talk about professional advocacy, personal advocacy, student advocacy, and systems advocacy, and how those all interrelate and how we can use our standards from ASCA as our North Star to kind of guide us on that journey when we are working and developing our comprehensive school counseling programs. We've also been making social media posts, trying to educate those in the community about the powerful work that you do as school counselors. And then we've also tried to get people to make one positive change in their advocacy that's super easy, and that is school counselors that still have the word guidance counselor in their signature tagline on their email or on their website. To get that changed over to school counselor, and how such a small movement can make such a big difference. Because if we don't even have common language amongst ourselves as professionals, it's hard for anyone else to fully understand what it is that we do. So that was the one big challenge that we had this week for all of our schools and our school counselors throughout the state of Kentucky.
So I'll drop in the one pager on why titles matter. In reference to what Dr. Cersei just said. Dr. Cersei, you also had our interim commissioner do a special video for counselors. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we featured that in our cadre meeting on Tuesday, and if we have time at the end, I'll pull it back up. so that way we can watch it here as well. But she just wanted to take some time and give us shout outs and show her appreciation for school counselors throughout the Commonwealth. And so that was a very special message, very heartfelt. And she was wanting to join us today, but she was pulled into another direction. But she will be here in May to spend some time with each of you.
All right. I'm not seeing anything else in the chat box, but if anything else comes in, I'll be sure to let you know.
All right. Thank you so much, Damian. All right. I have asked for Sarah Peace, who is our policy advisor here at KDE, if she would come in and talk to the group about the legislative process. So I don't know about most of you, but I had not learned about the legislative process since I was in school, middle school, high school. So it's been a while. And understanding how bills move through the legislature and how they move into law is exceptionally important. And I've watched her do this presentation a couple of times, and every time I learn something new. So if you can, please help me welcome Sarah Peace. And Sarah, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can share yours.
Wonderful. Hi, everyone. I see some familiar faces. It's good to see you, and those who I have not met before, thanks for having me. I also want to wish you a happy school counselor week as well. As a former high school administrator and also a mom, I lean on counselors very heavily. And I just, I don't know how you do what you do, but I appreciate you very, very much. And I know that your work is complex, and I just wanted to say that to everyone before I started. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to walk through the legislative process, like good old fashioned, how a bill becomes a law. It's very complex. I won't be speaking on any filed bills yet because nothing has really gone through the entire process. And so the version of bills that are posted right now, most of the time are not the versions that pass at the end. So once bills are passed, then the agency is able to develop next steps from there. But if you have any questions, if someone could maybe monitor the chat and let me know. Are you guys able to hear me okay?
Yeah, we hear you great, Sarah, and I will make sure to keep an eye on that chat for you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. All right. I'm going to share my screen. And then also, how much time do I have? I don't want to manipulate
you have up to 40 minutes.
Okay, I will not take that long. And I have to watch Senate Ed at 11, so don't let me.
I will not.
Okay. All right, I'm going to put this into a full screen mode. And then you guys may have already been provided a copy of this, but if you haven't, we'll make sure to get that to you if you'd like to have it. Okay, so just some general basics. So I wanted to start with the difference between a statute and a regulation. You guys have to work with these all of the time. Kentucky Revised Statutes, KRS, those are the laws that are passed by legislators. The agency doesn't have any ability to amend or change those laws, nor do either any of us. We would have to get a legislator to sponsor any changes that you ever want to see in a Kentucky Revised Statute, or if you want a new statute or something like that, it has to be proposed and brought to the General Assembly through a sponsor, which would be a legislator. The Kentucky Revised Statutes will sometimes pass over their lawmaking authority to another agency, which is where you will see the Kentucky administrative regulations come into play. And so you guys deal with 704 KAR 3305 probably a lot, depending on what group of students you might work with. That's the minimum requirements for high school graduation. And so essentially in that example, there is a statute that said that the KDE, with approval from the Kentucky Board of Education, can promulgate a regulation, meaning we can just write a regulation that details the law. And so there's a statute that says that students have to take financial literacy. Our regulation then would tie that into the graduation requirements. Might be an example. Statutes always trump regulation, but they both carry the force of law once they're passed through their different processes, and I'll go through each of those. Right now we're in the we're in the 2024 regular legislative session with the General Assembly. We're almost halfway through. This is a longer session because it's a budget year. Every 2 years, they will amend the budget. And so the session doesn't end until April. In shorter years, the session will end usually in February. There are several committees that meet during the legislative session. And so what exists on this standing committees that meet while there is session underway. But there's also
Sarah,
the interim joint committee.
We lost you for a few minutes.
Oh, no. Do you have me now?
We have you now, but you came in mid-sentence. If you could start at this screen, I'm sorry.
That's strange, but I'm glad you let me know. I always have tech issues, no matter how much I spend time trying to make sure I don't have tech issues. Okay. Now, so I was just kind of going over the different committees that meet during the legislative session. There are Senate and House versions of the same committees. So there's a Senate Education Committee that's actually meeting today at 11. There's also a House Education Committee. As educators, those are usually the committees that are most pertinent to us. When it's not session, like during the summer, the interim joint committees will meet. And so there's an interim joint committee on education that has some Senate members and some House members that come together, and they'll just discuss different topics that might be of interest to them in the upcoming session. There's also special committees, task forces, all kinds. There's a special committee during the interim on school and campus safety and security, for an example. And then, of course, there are also caucuses that are formed that are related to specific issues. So there's like a women's caucus as an example of that too. Are we still going okay in terms of my connection?
You are all good.
Okay, I'm going to be paranoid. Okay, so this is, we probably could do like the Schoolhouse Rock video, which would be more fun, but this is how a bill goes through the legislative process in Kentucky. And one thing I usually forget to note is the lower the bill number, the higher the priority it is for the legislators. And so anything that's like a single digit bill, like Senate Bill 1 to 9, we know that for the Senate, those are their highest priorities. And then the same thing goes for the House as well. So to start at the beginning of the road, and I'll move through this. And if you have questions, Michelle, just interrupt me and let me know, and we'll hit those as they come along. And so a bill, like I said, has to be introduced by a member of the General Assembly, either in the House or Senate. This is a budget year. The Constitution requires that the budget start in the House. This year it is House Bill 6. And so, and they actually just passed it out of committee to get it moving along the process. And I will say this session has been very weird. In my experience in this role, things are moving kind of slowly. There's not a lot of bills that are on the agenda. And I don't know why. I don't know what to think of it. I just am wondering if there's going to be just a lot of bills that are going to be dropped at the last minute. But bills are introduced, then they go to the Committee on Committees. I will say there's a lot of poorly named committees in this entire world. So the Committee on Committees look at all the bills and they decide which ones they want to send to another committee for further study. And so if a bill is filed and it's in the Committee on Committees and it's January that the bill was filed and it's still in Committee on Committees, that probably will tell us that the leadership of the House and Senate have decided that they do not want to move that bill forward in the legislative process. You never know, but most of the bills will die with the Committee on Committees. After that, if the Committee on Committees wants to study the bill further, they'll send it to a committee for study. So that's when it will go to the Education Committee. Then in the Education Committee, they can either look at the bill and never hear it. They can have the bill just heard, or they can act on the bill for consideration and vote on it at that time. If it doesn't get voted on out of committee, then it can die there. A lot of bills die there as well. After that, if it gets through committee, then the bill is given its first reading. All bills have to have 3 readings in each chamber. And then it's placed on the formal calendar. The calendar is just that one reading has occurred and that bill is ready for its second reading. When the bill is given its second reading, it's sent to the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee is made up of leadership in both the House and in the Senate, who then decide the order to put the bill to the next step for its third reading on the floor. And that's where under number 6, you'll get the orders of the day. In the orders of the day, it's the Rules Committee's ranking of what bills they want to be heard for a third time to be debated, amended, or passed on the floor. Sometimes it's also sent back to committee at that time too. I'm gonna lower this. Then the next step, number 7, if approved, the bill is sent to the other chamber where it starts all over again. So if a bill started in the House and went through all of these steps, it was heard on the floor and it passed, then it has to go to the Senate and start all over again. Some bills will make it this far. I said the Senate, but if it started in the Senate, then it would switch to the House. It just depends on which bill you're talking about. Okay. There we go. Okay. Then it goes through the exact same process in the other chamber. Sometimes what you will see happen is House has submitted a bill on a topic and the Senate has too, and the bills are different from each other. So then they go to the Conference Committee. The Conference Committee will then work out the differences between the bills and then land on a final version that goes back to both chambers to be voted on again. If both chambers pass the final version of the bill, then the bill will go to the governor. The governor is either able to sign the bill into law. The governor can not sign and allow the bill to just go into law as well, or the governor can veto a bill. Right now, there's a majority in the House and in the Senate. And so they have the ability to override a veto with a majority. And so because we have a Democratic governor and Republican House and Senate, it is pretty easy for the General Assembly to override vetoes of the governor. If the veto is billed, it has to go back again, if the bill is vetoed by the governor, it goes back to the chamber and then it's approved by constitutional majority in each, which like I mentioned, because there is a supermajority, it is pretty easy at this point in time for them to override the veto. After that, if the bill has an emergency clause, it will take effect immediately once it's either signed or if the veto is overridden. If it does not have an emergency clause, then it goes through a process. It goes to the Attorney General, and it's usually around mid-July that those bills finally become effective and become law. I have an example of a bill. This is actually the Read to Succeed bill from 2009. So you can just see what some of these things look like, in practice. And so on the left side, I have highlighted where it says it's declaring an emergency. So that's what it would look like if we knew it was a bill that if it was passed, it would become effective immediately. And then bills will have several sections. I think this bill maybe had like 11 sections. That's a lot. They can have more, but usually there's 6, 7 sections in a bill. Under 2A of this bill, you can see where I've highlighted administrative regulation promulgated by the Kentucky Board of Education. That's the language that requires us then to either amend a regulation or write a new regulation, depending on the bill. And then over here on the right side, section 8, this is what it looks like when they're creating like a whole new chapter or whole new section under a chapter with the LRC. And so in this case, there was not a statute that was being amended under section 8. They're creating a whole new statute. But all of this lives under one single bill, even though it includes all these different sections. Sometimes the different sections just amend bills that already exist or laws that already exist. Sometimes it doesn't. And so in this case, you can see how that looks both ways. I pause in case there's a question.
I do not have any in the chat, but if there's anyone that has a question that you want to ask Sarah before she continues on, you can feel free to unmute.
It's a lot of information and it's a crash course. Okay. So this next little section that I'm going to discuss, this is how the process works for whenever we are promulgating a new regulation after the passage of a statute that has given the authority to do so. We can promulgate regulations through the KBE, but also the different agencies like within the government are able to do this. And so I have here just the current composition of the Kentucky Board of Education. Right now, the way the board is composed, there are 11 voting members, 7 members that represent the Supreme Court districts, and then 4 members that just represent the entire state at large. There's also additional members who are non-voting, and that is the president of the Council on Post-Secondary Education, the secretary of the Education and Labor Cabinet, and then a high school student and an active elementary or secondary school teacher. Right now, there's a bill that's been filed that would change how the board is composed. They're appointed by the governor. The bill that's been filed that we don't know if it will move, but we're just watching, would allow board members to be voted kind of like your local school board members, and it would be partisan. It would double the size of the board as well. And so this slide could look very different next year. So just a little bit about the regulatory process and how that works. Once that we take a regulation that's been amended, or we've created a new regulation, sometimes you repeal old regulations and you bring it to the KBE for approval. If it's approved, then that regulation is filed with the LRC, and there's a public comment period where any member of the public is able to submit either a written comment or they can do it in person in response to the bill, or in response to the amended regulation or the new regulation. If we receive public comment, it automatically will trigger a statement of consideration that is developed by the KBE, where we address every single comment that has been made about a particular regulation. And then we will develop a statement of consideration which says, okay, we received this comment, we agree with the recommended changes, so we have changed the regulation again based on these comments. Then it goes back to the board to get voted on and improved on again. Sometimes we'll get a comment on a regulation and there will be 1 or 2. Sometimes there could be 300. It just really depends on the regulation. Then after that, it is sent to the Administrative Regulation Review Subcommittee. If there are no comments, it just goes right to that subcommittee. If there are comments, then that process will take place. It'll go back to the board. Then it gets reviewed by the subcommittee. If the subcommittee has questions or any issues or concerns, they're able to ask those of us, and that is comprised of members of both the Senate and the House. And they also will send the regulation to the committee. And in our case, it's always the Education Committee. So they also have an opportunity to review the regulation if they'd like to and bring us in if they have any questions. And you can see there's like time frames for each one of these steps, which is why it takes usually 6 to 9 months for a regulation to become effective from the time that it's approved by the board. When it's with the subcommittee, the regulation can be found deficient. If it's found deficient, then it goes to the governor, who is able to vote on the regulation at that, or who is able to either sign off on the regulation or agree in its deficiency. Okay, so just like a last couple of things, this is just some overall information. The 2024 session began on January 2nd. Like I mentioned, this is a longer session because it's a budget year. The last day that the House can introduce bills is February 26th. It's February 28th for the Senate. You will see a lot of bills get filed in the days leading up to that as well. I think right now there are a little over 400 bills that have been filed so far. And then there is a veto recess from March 29th through April 9th, and that's when the governor is able to review the bills that have been passed so far and decide which might get vetoed or may not be vetoed. And then April 12th through the 15th, the General Assembly can override veto if they get a constitutional majority in both the House and the Senate. And then the session ends on April 15th, and then I take a vacation. So that's about it. You can access the full calendar of the meetings at any time on the LRC's website. I also have here the links to watch meetings. All these meetings are public. You can watch on KET or the LRC's YouTube channel. Also, I have here the link to the KDE's media portal. That's where this meeting gets posted, but also the board meetings are posted there as well. And that is it. I'm going to
Sarah,
stop
thank
there.
you so much. I mean, my experience was with Schoolhouse Rocks, which was very good, by the way, but I love having the updated adult version that helps me better understand the legislative process and how things move along or do not move along in the state of Kentucky. So what we do have one question in the chat. It says, in your experience, what is the most effective way for counselors and educators to advocate for students or our profession? Over the years, there have been many times we've been encouraged to call, email, or come in person. How do these actions make an impact?
That's a very good question. And as you know, in politics, it's always loaded. And so I'm going to have the worst response, which is really like, it just kind of depends. One thing that I think is important to remember, because our work does get scrutinized as educators, education has become so politicized. I am very careful personally about what I say publicly about any bill, both as like an individual constituent, but also as a person who works in education. My recommendation is always that if there is a statute that you believe should be changed, if there are bills that are introduced that you find problematic, you as a constituent can always contact your personal representative, your personal senator, and speak to them as a person who is represented by them. I think that's always the most effective way to safely advocate for your work without possibly exposing yourself. Now, by exposing yourself, I mean, if you are acting as a member of a counsel or if you are formally making a comment from your professional role, that's a totally different thing. And so that's where I always encourage people to make sure that they have spoken to their local attorney, counsel, the government relations person, maybe for the district or the co-op or anywhere where you're working, to make sure that you don't inadvertently advocate for something that is inconsistent with the place and where you work, if that makes sense. I would not want to, as a policy advisor, go out into the public and say, hi, I work for KDE, I believe this. And then effectively I'm representing all of KDE and saying that. I never recommend that, but I also work in politics and have a legal background, and I always believe in playing it safe. But you also are entitled to a voice, and you are entitled to advocate for your students. You're entitled to advocate for your work and yourself. I believe the most effective way to do that without causing possible harm to yourself or to the place that you work is to go as a constituent, as an individual, to your representative or your senator. I don't know if I answered that question.
No, Sarah, I think you did a really good job with that. And then also remember, guys, there are organizations that advocate upon your behalf and upon your behalf as with your students as well. So, and we talked about that a little bit on Tuesday, is the more that your membership in any organization grows, the stronger that voice and advocacy becomes when they are going and advocating either for or against various bills. So that is something that you also, that can empower you in your voice. And for school counselors, I know ASCA does a lot, KSCA does a lot, and so does KCA. So know that you also have professional role groups that can help with that advocacy component as well.
And that might be another good place too, that if you have concerns or you like a bill, that you could share that. So that way, as a member of that organization, you are using your voice in that way as well. Or if that organization or your school or wherever you're employed asks you as a person in your position to take a position on the bill, then that's a totally different thing. I personally never take a position on a bill as a member of the KDE because the agency creates a position on the bill, not me as one policy advisor of 10. And so that's kind of where that separation for me occurs between us being a constituent and reaching out to my legislators on to advocate for what I believe on versus being a person who is involved in this work, but also doesn't have the authority to speak on behalf of the entire agency, if that makes sense too.
Oh, I think that's a really good clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Sarah? Hi, Sarah, I know you are very busy and you are about ready to go into another session here in about 15 minutes. So we just want to thank you for coming on, carving time out of your day to help us better understand that process so that we can utilize our voices in the correct way and understand how things move through. Thank you so much.
It is my pleasure. I, again, want to thank you guys so much for your work. I hope you're getting loved and doted on as you should. But as we know, it's kind of like being a parent. Sometimes you don't get the thanks that you deserve. And I just want to say, for me, that counselors have been very, very pivotal for my daughters. So thank you guys again. And you can always feel free to reach out and let me know if you have any other questions. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. You're amazing, Sarah. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you too.
All right, guys. I have also asked Sarah Aiken if she will give us an update on our SEL project that we've been talking about for a while. And also, Sarah, if anyone is interested, Sarah's actually, she works on the legislative component, the advocacy component with KSCA. So you can always send her a separate email outside of the advisory if you have any questions on where KSEA stands on any particular bills and their advocacy efforts. Great, Sarah, thank you for joining in today. Feel free to share your screen if you want to, or if you just want to give us a verbal update, that works as well.
Sure. I'm just going to give a verbal update at this time because we are putting the final touches on the SEL implementation guide. So like Michelle said, this is something that your SEL specialist for your co-ops have been working on. We have put together a guide for you specifically. Also, this guide is going to be for district leaders, school counselors, administrators, but also teachers. The guide looks at how we implement SEL from the district level to the school level, all the way down to the classroom level. So we are really excited about this document to share this. This is something that your cooperatives are going to be training on starting this summer and then rolling out through the fall. Each of your educational cooperatives are going to be training it just a little bit different, just based off of the needs that they know that your schools and districts may have. But we are really excited about that. We've paired up with Region 5, which they have helped us edit the document, look at the document to make sure that we are good to go. We are putting those final touches on it, and we actually have a meeting at the end of this month to kind of give it one look over, and then that should be finally released. So we are very, very excited about getting that out to you all because it is jam-packed with a ton of resources that I think are going to be really beneficial, not only to you, but also to teachers and to other leaders within your school building. So thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Sarah. So you guys, our plan is we're going to roll this out at the next school counselor cadre, and that's in June, the beginning of June. And so you're going to get the first training components on how to use this playbook and how to really help support your work in leading SEL in your school. So as Sarah said, it is jam-packed with resources. It's gonna hopefully take things off of you so that you will have things that you can plug and play from the school level down to the classroom. And then, like she said, we also have district level components as well. So any questions for Sarah on the SEL playbook? All right. Thank you, Sarah. Give me just a second. I am going to share my screen. All right, Damien mentioned that we had a special video from our commissioner. I am going to show that to you real quick.
Hello, I'm Robin Kinney, Kentucky's Interim Commissioner of Education. As National School Counselors Week is upon us, I want to take a moment to extend my heartfelt appreciation for the exceptional work that Kentucky's school counselors contribute to our educational community. Your dedication to supporting students, fostering their growth, and providing support in both academic and personal matters is truly remarkable. National School Counselors Week is an opportunity to recognize the invaluable role you play in shaping the lives of our students and enhancing the overall well-being of our school environment. Your commitment to creating a positive and inclusive space for learning does not go unnoticed. Your efforts have a lasting impact on the success and development of our students, and for that, I am deeply grateful. This week serves as a reminder to celebrate your accomplishments, acknowledging your tireless efforts, and express gratitude for the positive influence you have on the educational journey of our students throughout the Commonwealth. Your work is instrumental in shaping a brighter future for our community, and I'm proud to have such dedicated professionals on our team. Thank you for your unwavering commitment and hard work. I wish you a wonderful National School Counselors Week filled with the recognition and appreciation you greatly deserve.
Right, I've asked Damien if he would go over some celebrations that we have with our equity playbook. I am going to share this with each of you. We like to celebrate when we see things that are going well, when we have things that we are doing that's really impacting our students, changing the culture and climate of our schools, and helping our students be successful and feel like they are connected. And so back in 2022, we started the Equity Playbook, and you guys have heard quite a bit about that over the years. But now we've got some pretty astounding and amazing research that we want to share with you. Damien, do you want to come off mute and I can click through the presentation for you, or we can just present
Sure.
this together?
All right. So I'll just kind of introduce this project. Again, is something that we're really excited about. When we say to you all that we really try to ensure that school counselors are a part of any and everything that we do, that is a very true statement. The Equity Playbook is something that we started with you and school leaders, school and district leaders in mind, as well as teachers. This offers personalized executive coaching. As a school counselor, I had a team of 4, and even within a team of 4, within my building, I often felt like I was on an island. I felt like, golly, nobody can really quite understand exactly what I was going through. And I had people in my school doing the same exact thing. So the intent of this project is that you really have that individual personalized coaching, so that it is really finding ways to have exactly what you need. Areas of strength, areas to grow in, all of those needs can be discussed with a one-on-one in a one-on-one situation with a coach. So let's go to the next slide. So we have everybody that's coached. They can choose one of 5 pillars. Those pillars are on the right side. It can be student achievement, utilization of funding and resources. I love, we were in a conversation yesterday with Dr. Cersei, and she said, she reminded us where your money is, that shows your priorities, right? So where your money goes, where your money flows, that's where your priorities are. And we've talked to students who have said things like, we see funding going to this area of our school, but not this area of our school. So utilization of funding and resources is another equity pillar. Disproportionality relative to student discipline. Hopefully by now you have accessed and you're utilizing the equity dashboard, which shows you a big picture of whether or not there is disproportionality. It can be in reference to discipline, achievement, absenteeism, and more. Culture and climate's another pillar, and then highly effective staff and high quality instructional resources. So the coachee can choose any one of these 5 pillars and get coached on those. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, you'll see here that we have 55 different schools that are Equity Playbook school districts that are Equity Playbook. We call them Equity Playbook school districts. We used an independent research company. So this is not research done by our vendor, nor is it research done by the Kentucky Department of Education. So this researcher has found the following. Our schools that have taken part in the Equity Playbook, they're outperforming students that do not have schools that do not have the Equity Playbook. They're outperforming those schools in science, and then that's for all students. And then their economically disadvantaged students are also outperforming other schools, comparison schools, economically disadvantaged students as well. We're also seeing huge growth in math for economically disadvantaged students as well. You'll see here that our advanced placement percentage of kids taking AP has grown for Equity Playbook schools, and it's also grown in reference to Black and African American students. One thing to note, and I think this is really important for you all to be aware of, is that no student in Kentucky has paid more than $12 for an AP exam this year. That is because there is a budget bill that allows us to use those funds, and that budget bill has been $3.6 million. Currently in the budget bill, there's only $1 million. So $2.6 million has been removed from that, which would also remove that opportunity for us to reduce costs as drastically as we have. So please be aware of that as well. Okay, but in terms of the Equity Playbook, you'll see that Equity Playbook schools have not only increased all enrollment, but also increased African American student enrollment by 5 percentage points. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, we've worked significantly in Boone County. All of their school leaders have had access to the Equity Playbook. Their district is really brought in, so we consider this an exemplar district. And you'll see here that in Boone County, with one of their middle schools, that the achievement gap has been reduced by 3% for Black and Hispanic students, and then 7% for what we call emerging multilingual students. So we're already seeing huge gaps being closed with schools and school districts that are participating in the Equity Playbook and getting that one-on-one personalized executive coaching. All right, here you just see that disproportionality in terms of student behavior has been reduced with Equity Playbook schools. So we're really working with schools on being culturally responsive and then figuring out what is the root cause to disproportionate student behavior, and then how can we positively turn some of that negative data around. So here you'll see that our Equity Playbook schools are experiencing improved student behavior compared to their non-Equity Playbook schools. All right, and then we always try and mix in qualitative data. So this is really important for all school counselors. Whenever you're sharing data with somebody, especially because you want to move them, it can't just be about numbers. It's also got to be about, emotional connection. So we have people that are saying things like students were afraid to be wrong and get a wrong answer. There's a lot more students raising their hands, more students being willing to talk about things, even if they're not sure if they're right or wrong. So that's a result of, a direct result of their participation in the Equity Playbook. I want to create a culture as the principal where my employees really want to be here, work here, and create a place where it's highly sought after for people around us. I feel like if I can do that for my employees, then in turn, we're going to get that for my students. So again, that's a principle from one of the Equity Playbook schools. And finally, the coaches were fabulous, very personal and kind. This person says that she had a daughter. She has a daughter, rather. She's a first-year kindergarten teacher, and her daughter basically wants access to that personalized executive coaching as well. All right. Hopefully, from that short, presentation on the Equity Playbook data, you're starting to see the power of personalized coaching. Right? Imagine if Michelle was sitting right across from you in your office and saying, "Tell me about." Where you are with your comprehensive school counseling program. Again, tell me your strengths and then tell me some areas of growth. And then she walked you through ways that you could truly grow in terms of your needs. That is exactly what this is. And that's exactly why you're seeing some of the huge gains that I just showed. Thank you so much. Are there any questions?
Dr. Sweeney, thank you for giving that overview. And I love to celebrate successes that we're seeing in our schools. One of the questions that I get about the Equity Playbook is people want to know, how do I get this book? And I know you have received that question too. So can you debunk that question for us?
Right. So very, very similar to so when we say Equity Playbook, we're really looking for ways that, let's say, again, you've got that coaching scenario with Dr. Searcy. What plays can we put into motion for you so that you can really turn negative data into positive data and turn those growth areas into success stories, right? So it's not about a book, but it is about giving you plays or ways to pivot in your practices in order to gain the success and confidence you need.
Absolutely. So y'all think about, instead of a physical book, think more about like what a coach uses when they're on the field or when they're on the court, and they're looking at plays and different things that they can do, strategies that they can incorporate to make gains on the field or on the court. That's really more what the Equity Playbook is. It's not a physical book, but a coaching manual and opportunity.
Right. So the last thing I'll just say is, just to be like totally transparent with you. We feel like this is groundbreaking work in our state. We also feel like this is groundbreaking work throughout the country. Kentucky is the first state in the entire country to offer this to our educators, and to couple that access and opportunity with those gains. We just feel like we're just so excited. So we hope you share that excitement with us, and happy to partner with you in any way we can. Thanks again, Michelle.
Thanks, Dr. Sweeney. All right, if there are no questions, we're going to go on, and I want to give a quick update on our new early graduation program requirements that will take place in the school year 24-25. And in the 24-25 school year, students that want to participate in the early graduation program, they are going to have to complete a capstone component. So this is a culmination of their learning, and we are working on a document. It is close to being finished that will give you some examples of what some capstone projects can look like, as well as some rubrics that you can use when developing that. But we do want to put that on your radar, since that is coming up pretty quickly. So if you are a high school counselor, that's something that you're going to want to take a look at. And you can find that on our KDE website. If you go to the website and type in early graduation program, click on that link, and it's going to take you right to the early graduation program page where it's going to list those additional requirements, and then we'll have the updated guide for you posted there soon. Last thing I want to talk to you today, I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen because I would love to see your faces. Want to talk to you about the use of time survey. So we know this is our third year of doing the use of time survey for school counselors and other mental health professionals. We know that it is also very difficult for you all to collect your data throughout the year if the questions change every year. It makes it very hard. So this year we did have to make some changes. We heard from Sarah, and she talked to us a little bit about legislation and what we have to monitor here at KDE based upon what has become law. And so that's why we had to take out those pieces that said appropriate or inappropriate. And we talked at our last meeting, that does not mean that you shouldn't track those things. You absolutely should. It's a great thing for you to share with your building administrators. But looking at the questions as they stood this year, I would love to get your feedback on any questions that you might have struggled with that you would want to see changed. We would like to make as few changes as possible so people aren't scrambling when we go to collect the data for our next round of use of time surveys. But if there were any questions that you or your colleagues felt were difficult to answer, or you think need to be altered to get a better picture, would love to hear your voice on this. So you can either unmute and give us some feedback, or you can drop it in the chat, either way. And we're also going to do this, we're going to get feedback from our other mental health professional organizations as well. We did talk to them before we developed this use of time survey. So we talked to our Frisky coordinators, which, by the way, if you don't know, I'm sure you do, it's Frisk Awareness Week as well, and Appreciation Week. And then we also talked to our social workers and school psychologists. So we're going to get feedback on their components, but specifically looking at the school counselor questions. Any feedback or thoughts? Okay, I am going to take that as you were good with the questions this year and there were no issues. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay, I'm seeing some nods. All right, let me go back to sharing my screen here. Give me just a moment.
All right, we can see it, Michelle.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. All right, if you can, please go on and mark your calendar. Our next advisory meeting is May 30th. that will be virtual, 10 to 11:30. If there is something that you would like to see on that agenda or something you would like me to address or for us to discuss as a group, please feel free to email me. Would love to hear your thoughts on that. And then also, I know sometimes it is uncomfortable to share your thoughts on something like the use of time survey in a large setting like what we just experienced. So if you do have thoughts that you would like to share one-on-one, I would welcome those. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions before we start looking at next year's survey. All right, and then we're just going to close it out with saying thank you for being a part of our School Counselor Advisory Member Group. We know that it's hard to put something else on your calendar and carve out time, but we do appreciate you being a part of our group, for giving us feedback and learning along with us and sharing information with your colleagues around you throughout the state. So I'm going to hang back for just a second, but if you don't have any questions, I hope you have a wonderful day and that you're being celebrated for the rest of the week for National School Counseling Week.
Happy National School Counseling Week. You are very loved and we appreciate you.
Absolutely.